Here it is, the Mavic 3, the heir to the throne of compact professional drones, carved for the hands of filmmakers and photographers, promising improved image quality and impeccable flight capabilities. Though oddly there are a couple of features missing that professionals want, and it makes it seem this product is half-baked, rushed out for the holiday season, and not the good kind of half-baked, like half-baked cookies. And then there's the Cine version that costs you an arm and a leg. Let's talk about it. Thanks to Adorama, I got my hands very early on this drone, so let's have an honest discussion and test if this Mavic 3 is worth its steep price tag, which is clearly aimed at the pro market, and see what you as a filmmaker, photographer and creator can get out of this. Now, let's talk about the image sensor, stuff we actually care about. The Mavic 3 boasts now a 4/3 sensor that is up from a 1-inch sensor that the Mavic 2 Pro had. In theory, that should lead to better image quality and particularly better low light performance, which we will test later in this video. This is the same sensor size that you find in the Zenmuse X5S camera system that you mount on the Inspire 2 drones, and it's the same size as the GH5 sensor. So that's kind of an upgrade, and incredible how they cramped this into this little drone. It now shoots in 5.1K at 50 frames per second and allows you to crop in later in post and slow it down. Also, you can shoot in DCI 4K at 120. I've tried it out. It looks good, and I don't see that many use cases. There's even a 1080p 200 frames per second coming. But other than that, the 5.1K footage looks really, really good. Now, this 4/3 sensor sits behind a 28mm equivalent lens by Hasselblad with a variable aperture of 2.8 to 11. Now, I really got to love this variable aperture on the Mavic 2 Pro, and I feel like it's almost table stakes now for a professional drone, so it allows you to adjust your exposure easily mid-flight. The more disappointed I am that there is no dedicated wheel anymore on the controller like the Mavic 2 Pro had that allows me to adjust the aperture on the go. So I have to fiddle around on my mobile phone screen, which is kind of disappointing. It is there on the Pro controller, the one with the screen, but still, how difficult is it to just add another wheel here somewhere? Also, talking about the good old days, the Mavic 2 Pro allowed you to switch mid-flight between two modes of the 4K image, the field of view and the HQ mode, essentially giving you two focal lengths that you can easily switch during the flight. Now, doesn't exist on the Mavic 3. All they do is like throw in a wide angle lens that you can buy for $179. Talking about lenses, one of the things that certainly intrigued me the most amongst all the leaks and rumors is the zoom camera. Turns out this camera is a 1/2-inch sensor behind a 162mm equivalent lens with a fixed aperture of 4.4. Now, this is extremely long, but you can get some very, very interesting shots out of this, and I had a lot of fun actually trying it out and exploring the creative potential. And I found that the image actually is surprisingly stable, which makes me think that there's some sort of mixture between optical, mechanical with a gimbal, and digital stabilization going on. After seeing some initial blurry footage on the internet, I was skeptical about this lens and went into testing with very, very low expectations. This is the best way to live life anyways, because then you can only be positively surprised. Free life advice here. After playing around with it a little bit, you can certainly get some fairly solid images out of this zoom camera, at least enough for YouTube and social media. However, it is a little bit of a hit and miss because you have zero control over any of the settings. You cannot access D-Log, and also the autofocus seems to be off at times given its soft image or is searching for it. The only way for you to control the exposure is using the exposure adjustment, but that's not ideal. Given this limited control, the image quality, and that you can only shoot in 4K 30 and 1080p 30 and JPEG photos, this camera does not have any professional application. I really hope that DJI will add manual controls to this camera. I don't see why not. It seems to be one of these odd decisions again, possibly because of a time crunch. To access this camera, you have to enter the Explorer mode, which already gives you an idea of how DJI is actually marketing this camera. There you start in the one-time zoom of the 4/3 sensor, and then it digitally crops in, zooms into 2 times and 4 times. But once you hit 7 times zoom, it switches over to the zoom camera and the image quality improves. Though don't even think about going beyond 7x, it goes up to 28x. The footage gets extremely pixelated and grainy, and it can be at best used for scouting. So overall, I surprisingly enjoy using the zoom camera, although it's just a fun gimmick and you should not set your expectations up too high for it. With the Mavic 3 DJI, I also released sets of ND filters that cover both lenses, which, disclaimer, I don't have yet, so that's why my footage is sometimes a little choppy and I cannot hit the 180 degrees shutter angle. There is a set of 4, 8, 16 and 32 that is included in the Fly More combo, and then there's another set of 64, 128, 256 and 512. I don't know. I cannot honestly think about a use case for this unless you're Icarus and you're flying into the sun. Though maybe if you shoot long exposure photos during the day, I guess I could think of one use case. So I just ordered the ND 4-32 set from the good folks at Adorama that also sent me this drone. I've been ordering gear at Adorama for years now. Heck, even I got my EVA-1 there and ordered just a Sony a7S III. Because of their great product selection and competitive pricing. So if you fancy getting the Mavic 3, I will leave links in the description below, but let's talk about picture profiles next. Now when it comes to picture profiles, you have the choice between two. Standard and D-Lock. No HLG, no D-Cine-alike anymore. Again, half-baked. I suspect that they may be adding more in future. The lock profile though is improved and significantly flatter than the D-Lock M of the Mavic 2 Pro, providing you with more details in the shadows and allowing you to access the claimed 12.8 stops of dynamic range. Though you can only shoot in ISO 400 and 800 in D-Lock. I'm still getting a hang on how to grade with this D-Lock profile, but with the 10-bit H.265 codec, gives you a lot of latitude to play around and post and bring your vision to life. And then on the other side there is the standard image profile, which is actually surprisingly really good. I usually dislike using the standard image profile because it diminishes your dynamic range, but this one is pretty good, and I guess it's due to the new HNCS, Hasselblad Natural Color Science. The colors feel very natural, it doesn't feel oversaturated or over contrasty, and if you apply a look LUT on top of it, you actually get a lot of latitude out of this. So a good chunk of the video footage that you're seeing throughout this video is actually shot in the standard profile. Though I have one major gripe, at least right now you cannot adjust the sharpness, contrast or saturation of your picture profiles, which is something that was standard in the previous drones. And I don't know why they took it away. Again, I think it is half-baked. Plays all into the same theme here. I hope that we get access to this control in the update that's coming in January 2022, because the image at times seems overly sharp. On the photo front, it's not much of an upgrade from the Mavic 2 Pro. Clearly it's a bigger sensor, but it's still 20 megapixels, and the images that I get out of it look great. You can shoot in RAW and JPEG, though on the zoom camera you can only shoot 12 megapixels and only in JPEG. Again, odd decision. I hope RAW capabilities are coming to that camera. Also, the panorama and 360 function is not existent yet, and that will be something added in the update. You've possibly already seen a few videos around the Cine version of this, so let me just share with you my personal take on it and why I think most of us won't need this. Aside from the Pro RC with a 1000 nit screen and the internal 1 terabyte SSD, the real differentiator is that the Cine version can shoot in ProRes 422 HQ codec. Now, if you haven't felt the need for ProRes before, or no one has ever asked you for it, then you possibly, very likely, don't need it. If you're unfamiliar with ProRes, it's actually Apple's video compression codec, and it's an alternative, a less compressed alternative to the heavier compressed H.264 and H.265 that you can also select on this drone. Because of its lower compression, it is actually easier to edit. It's easier to digest for computers. And it also contains more information on the image and the color, but it is also much heavier, and hence the 1 terabyte SSD in here. But it is not ProRes RAW that some people got the impression it is. So it doesn't allow you to change the ISO or white balance in post or have like a 14, 16-bit color depth. In my humble opinion, most of us will be fine with a basic version, and we may be better off to invest the money in a faster computer. Like the M1 Max has no problem editing and playing back the H.265 footage of this drone, so that may be a better investment. Now let's touch on lowlight. I took both the Mavic 3 and the Mavic 2 Pro right here to my window and shot out in the night into the darkness. And it was clearly something that DJI has been hyping up in their release video because of the 4/3 sensor. So let's see, let's look at it, because I have not done the test yet. I'm gonna look at it live. I love doing these things, live reaction. So looking at the standard image profile, it is hard to make out a difference between the two. It seems like the Mavic 2 Pro's noise pattern is a little bit more erratic, a little bit more flickering. Honestly, I don't see much of a difference, so I would not say this is like, thanks to the larger sensor now, a better capable, more capable low light camera. But honestly, it's not much of a deal breaker for most of us, because we're not generally, in the US at least, unless you have a special license, you're not allowed to fly at night anyways. There you have it. Let's also address the stuff that DJI is really, really good at, and that is building drones that just fly perfectly and get smarter with every generation. The drone is now faster thanks to improved aerodynamics. Specifically, the ascent and descent speed has improved and increased noticeably. It is also quieter and has more of a deeper hum to it. Also, the boot up sound is not this very, very shrill, loud tone, but it sounds more like this. And the battery on it increased from 31 minutes on the Mavic 2 Pro to 46 minutes. Obviously, you don't get always to that kind of level, but flying it, I definitely have felt the extended battery life now. Though it takes 1 hour and 15 minutes on the 65 watt charger. If you just plug it in a normal USB-C port, it takes even longer. But you see that indicated in the LED bar if it's charging faster with a 65 watt or the slower charging through any normal USB-C charger. Unfolded, it is a little larger than the Mavic 2 Pro, but if you fold it down, it is basically the same size as the Mavic 2 Pro, but still certainly larger than the Mavic 2S. It now stands, and I'm folding it again, it now stands also higher, which gives actually the gimbal more clearance when it does the gimbal calibration, especially if you're on uneven ground. This is certainly an improvement. The O3 Plus image transmission from the drone to the controller can now send 15 kilometers wide in perfect conditions, a 1080p 60 frames per second signal. They're doing some magic with switching the channels all the time. Who knows what the hocus pocus is, what they're doing. But like the Mavic 2S and the DJI FPV, it has an ADS-B in transponder, which will become law in the US and I believe Europe as well, so that you can see when there is a manned aircraft around you, and you can just pull up a map. I've tried it out, you see it here. It just shows you where said manned aircraft is located. With the Mavic 3, DJI also introduced an updated version of their omnidirectional obstacle avoidance, calling it APAS 5.0. Instead of just looking 20 meters ahead like the Mavic 2 Pro does, this drone looks up to 200 meters ahead and around itself to scan its environment and help you not to crash it. Also, it comes with an optimized return to home feature where it goes the most efficient route back, allowing you to stay and fly longer before it has to return to its home point. The optical avoidance only works in the scene and normal mode, not in the sport mode. Keep that in mind. And you really don't want to crash or lose this drone because it is really pricey. I hope you're sitting down. The basic version, just a controller and one battery in the drone, is $2,199. The Fly More combo with 2 more batteries and backpack and some ND filters is $2,999, and then the Cena version, add another $2,000 to it for $4,999. Certainly, this was a massive step up in pricing, and it is clearly geared to prosumers and professional use. So keep that in mind. If you're just like a hobbyist, get the Air 2S, you're perfectly fine with that one. Whew, that was a lot of info. So should you as a filmmaker and creator invest in this drone, or heck even get the Cine version? It's actually a tricky question, and I think there lies actually the problem. DJI has been releasing very capable drones over the past couple of years. They're just getting better and better, and it's very tricky for them to improve upon that high base that they're already working off. Clearly with this drone you have the improved flight performance, the amazing 5.1K 4/3 CMOS sensor, and this awesome Hasselblad color science. But on the other side, there are a bunch of features specifically in the software that professional drone pilots and prosumers will miss and make this a half-baked product. While a lot is promised in the January 22nd software update, there are still a couple of features we are not clear about, and I hope DJI is listening. Hello? Not sure. But if you want to be at the forefront of technology or have a commercial reason to invest in it, the Mavic 3 is an awesome drone and delivers on what it promises. If you have the Mavic 2 Pro or even the 2S and just use this as a hobby, you're possibly fine not upgrading and skipping this generation, or just waiting out on what they add to this drone over software updates. But I'm curious to hear your opinion. Let me know down, or let us all know down in the comment section below what you think of this drone. Will you invest in it? Will you buy it? What features are you missing right now that you really want in this coming update to be included? Again, maybe they're listening. And as always, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you found it informative, you took something away, definitely hit the like button. If you love it, if you love the synthwave kind of style, subscribe. And as always, have a good morning, have a good night, whenever and wherever you are around this beautiful planet. Bye bye. That's it. We're done. We're done.